Have you ever experienced a moment in time where things were going fine one minute, and then the next minute, all of a sudden, you were reacting with pretty intense emotion? Maybe you were having a very angry response and you blurted out something that you didn't expect to say, or you suddenly screamed at someone or yelled at your child and you wanted to show them love. Something happened that wasn't congruent with the state of your emotion beforehand, or even the state of what you thought your heart was, that you were in for example, if you're going down the highway and you're listening to worship music and then all of a sudden someone cuts you off, and the words that come out or the thoughts that come to your mind immediately, just like that, aren't in line with what you were thinking and feeling before. That can feel really frustrating. I've definitely had that happen to me, and maybe a similar scenario or something different has happened for you. When that happens, we can feel a lot of guilt for the response that we've had because it wasn't kind. It was an angry response that could be hurtful to someone, and we definitely don't want to have those responses. But one of the reasons that those responses sometimes comes up is because we aren't dealing with the angry prompts, the things that have started anger inside of us from past events. Instead of dealing with the emotion that's inside of us, we try to kind of soothe it or make sure that we are clinging to something positive, but we're completely denying and not expressing the true feeling of anger. And that anger might be there for a reason. One of the fears that I've had as a believer and things that I've heard from other people is that anger is a sin. Well, we need to look at that a little bit further, because the Bible talks a lot about in your anger, do not sin, is one of the verses. And it talks about the destruction that comes from anger. But we also see God, his anger is kindled, Jesus, who is angry in the temple. Anger serves a purpose. Our emotions are part of our reflection of God. Satan comes in and distorts what that purpose is, and he uses scenarios against us. And so sometimes we have those lies that are playing in our minds. And also, there are physiological things that can build up in our body because we haven't dealt with anger in healthy ways. Anger is a sign, emotions in general are a sign and a signal that something is going on, something that needs to be paid attention to. Anger especially signals that in some way we have felt threatened, and it may be a real or perceived threat of danger that generally ignites fear. But the anger can also, from those threats, can put us in this fight, flight, or freeze response where we want to attack someone. The anger can also be a sign of some injustice that has been that has happened to us in our lives. And that injustice may be a perceived injustice because we had expectations that weren't realistic or weren't in line with what somebody else could do. Or it could be a real injustice, a harm that was either directly, indirectly, intentionally, non-intentionally occurred, and it happened to us. And out of that, there was some kind of a harm. One of the ways that I did not deal with anger in my life that caused a lot of problems for me was to not get angry at the right things. So because I felt that anger was a sin, I would try to stuff it down and not allow myself to express any level of anger. I also didn't feel like I had a safe place to express the anger, but then it came out sideways. It wasn't that it wasn't there, it just came out after it kind of got like squished out with all these circumstances, right? But I had this belief that anger was a sin. I couldn't be angry at God. I couldn't be angry at anybody else, and I couldn't be angry at any of the wrongs. What happened is my mind started to get distorted, and when true harm, true injustices were happening, I didn't have anger for the person who was harming me. So instead, I took it on as all the things that happened to me, sadness for it. I started to kind of close up and shut up and just take on all the pain of it. Whereas a healthy response would have been to get angry when someone was trying to do actual harm, to get away from damaging situations, to let that anger drive me to an action that brings me to safety or that rights an injustice. There are times when we need to get angry that we don't get angry. And there are definitely times when our anger leads us to destruction. So when we notice that our anger is coming out sideways or it's causing harm to other people, instead of just trying to not have anger, which doesn't work, ask God, what is that anger all about? It may be that you need to talk through some things with a safe friend or a professional counselor and identify kind of the sources of experiences that you've had that didn't have healthy processing for those emotions, or the anger wasn't allowed healthy expression in a safe place. And therefore, when something else happens, boom, just like that, it can be triggered. And that stinks. Nobody wants to be able to respond like that. We want to be able to respond in healthy ways to other people. So if you experience any of that, I just encourage you to bring before God the fact that the anger is there or that it's coming out, and ask Him to reveal what's underneath. Where does He want to bring healing? How can you bring safe and healthy expressions of anger out into the world so they're not stuck inside of you, so they don't come upon the people that you love, but that you're able to actually get it out? One suggestion that I have for that is simply writing it out with God or talking with Him in a journal or through prayer and worship. That is one of the best ways to just start acknowledging anger that actually already exists and talking to God about it, and then receiving from Him the love that He still has for you, even when anger isn't being used in healthy ways. He is working to redeem that and to bring you into a healthier place. Take care, friends.